It's 1850 in Middle Britain. All around the rolling hills stood silent as the starter's gun rang out. The Olympic Games had once again begun 1500 years after they were outlawed for being a little bit too pagan. While the Wenlock Games would never go on to become the Olympics as we know them, without them, our Olympic Games may never have returned. Hello, you swarm of skunks, and welcome to Remember, the show all about histories, mysteries, and wrongdoings. It's always been about wrongdoings. We are righting the wrongs of histories, one vendetta at a time.
My vendetta is against the stinkiness of the swarm of skunks.
Just don't anger the skunks, Paula, would be what I would say. Don't threaten them, just be calm and kind, and they might embrace you as one of their own.
You know, you make a good point that skunks don't just go around being stinky, right? It is a defense reaction. So, common misconception, skunks just smell. They don't. They smell under very specific circumstances.
It's like how, when I shut down emotionally and become very cold.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Except less smelly.
That's when I get depressed. That's a whole different thing. I'm joined by an expert rider and gold medal winning leg spreader, Paula Deming. And I am Master Coitus Matthew G.
I'm speechless, frankly, about that intro. I'm speechless.
Horseback riding and gymnastics are Olympic sports. That's what I was going with that, Paula.
And what was yours? What's your sport?
Coitist. It's an old Olympic sport, which I did a lot of research into. I'll tell you now, coming up later.
Oh my goodness. Well, if you are also shocked and scandalized by the introduction there, listener, then buckle up. I have no idea what Matthew has in store for us today. What kind of Olympic Games are we about to talk about?
This episode is about the Olympics. Those were Olympic euphemisms, and I've wrote a fairly long emergency apology into the script just in case, which I decided not to read, given your response.
Maybe you should read it.
The Olympics, the Olympic Games are, by my count, the best thing that happens on Earth. It's one step above watching Les Mis at the West End and two above making love.
But I thought you were Master Coitus.
Coit is a little game. We're going to get into it. It's not anything weird.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Of course, me. Well, I don't know. Why is my mind in the gutter?
And as a British man from the West Midlands, in these here United Kingdoms, it's about time to talk about the Olympic Games and how they made their return to the world. You see, when you look at the dates, you quickly find that the ancient Olympic Games officially came to an end around 394 AD. The Roman Emperor Theodosius I outlawed pagan celebrations, and the first modern Olympic Games took place 1,503 years later, after the Union de Socialites François de Sports Athletiques met in Paris in 1884.
Whoa.
And unanimously voted that the return would be in Athens 2 years later.
Wait, in France, they decided that they would do this thing in Athens? You know, a bunch of French people being like, you know what? Let's all go to Greece and do this big thing. And the Greeks are like, what is happening? Why are you all here? What's going on?
Is this an invasion? There's a lot of very strong-looking athletes on their way to our borders.
Yeah.
Let's prepare to defend. Now, that may be correct. And as a man of history, Paula, I'm a man of history, and of course, of the erotic arts, but mostly of history. I'm willing to accept it. However, there's a town in Britain with possibly one of the most British-sounding names of all time. It's called Much Wenlock. I don't know what Wenlock is, but they've got lots of it.
They show up, they're like, wow, there is so much Wenlock here. Oh, where are we going? Oh, let's meet up at that place with so much Wenlock. Oh, yeah. And then eventually it gets shortened.
Yeah.
To Much Wenlock. Much Wenlock. Oh, yeah, we live here in Much Wenlock.
Well, they have a different story to tell. Much Wenlock is a small, picturesque, in parts, it's not all great, town in Shropshire. And it's there in 1809 that William Pennybrooks is born.
Oh, that's one of the most British names forget Much Wenlock. Pennybrooks.
William Pennybrooks.
That's like a butler in a Agatha Christie novel or something, maybe. Hello, Mr. Pennybrooks. You can't tell, but I am British. Wow, really? Never would have guessed.
When he was old enough, he left Much Wenlock to study medicine at Guy's and St Thomas hospitals in London. He spent time as a young man in Italy and Paris to study further, returning home in 1831 to take over his father's medical practice, his father having died the year before from typhoid. 10 years later, he becomes JP, a Justice of the Peace, a magistrate in the village, something he'd go on to do for almost 40 years.
Wow.
And it's through these daily dealings with delinquents and drunkardness that he begins the Agricultural Reading Society, an early kind of lending library for the promotion and diffusion of useful information.
Was he like, hey, y'all, you don't have to drink. Instead, you could read? Is that the idea?
Kinda.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah, great. I think it's a great idea. I love the library.
You would love the library.
Don't say it like that. I do love the library. I do miss being at a university with like a really good like research stacks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
That's, oh man. You don't have access to that kind of thing in just a regular old public library, right? The public library is great too. Go in and I just check out like 6 to 8 books typically at a time. Oh boy, it's so good.
The society over time evolved and started including various classes, including art, Philharmonic and botany classes. And in 1850, Brooks added the Wenlock Olympian class, which themselves included his own Wenlock Olympic Games.
Is it just like field day at school? Where it's just like, hey, we're just gonna like have the kids play outside all day and they're gonna wear different colored t-shirts and like do a 3-legged race and an egg relay thing and
in a lot of ways, yeah. This was his way of trying to improve the town. He was always dealing with the problems of the town. William Penny Brooks really was one of the figures of Much Wenlock, and he was trying to improve this place, and he decided that the best way to do that was to provide things for the youth of the town to do.
It's smart. It's really smart. And then you have pride in something too, right? You're like, we play in these games. We do these things. We are focused on like that. Yeah, it's really smart. Well, and I know you're going to tell me, but why did he name them the Olympic Games? And how did he even know about the Olympic Games if they had ended so long ago?
The Olympic Games were a famous thing. People knew about the Olympics, the Olympiad, the ancient Greek kind of things. And he wasn't the only one who had these aspirations of starting games, as we'll see. But it's October 1850 in Much Wenlock, and the games are afoot. Just a few more things about Brooks's career, which honestly, it really feels as though he is the most important guy in town. He made big changes to Much Wenlock, such as how for hundreds of years a stream ran down the length of the town's high street. Sounds lovely. Yeah. Stream that also served as the town's open sewer. So, quoting the Wellington Journal, all manner of scum and rottenness was carried down through the main street.
Just talk about a swarm of skunks. It was pretty stanky.
Well, Brooks, being a medical man, realised that this probably wasn't ideal. And he's credited as, through his medical training and access to evolving medical research, he would have realised that this sewer could have been responsible for the ill health of some of his patients. Yeah. And ultimately, the sewer system was diverted and covered.
Hey!
Now, when I read that, it felt as though he was a guy who made this improvement, but then I looked again and it never actually says that he did anything about it, only that he noticed it.
He was like, this is making people sick. Oh, well, look at all this Wenlock.
I don't think he was like building the thing himself, but he was kind of like definitely a mover and shaker in Much Wenlock, which is the place to be a mover and shaker in the 1850s, let me tell you.
He might have been like pointing it out to people who then made changes them, yeah.
It's just that I got a lot of research from the fantastic Wenlock Olympian Society itself, and they love him. So I feel like...
Take it with a grain of salt, maybe?
But he was crucial to the town's progress. He started a museum in the rooms of the Agricultural Reading Society building. When Much Wenlock National School was built, Brooks served as its manager. Along with others, he helped in bringing the railway to town, and then he went on to become a director of the Wenlock and Severn Junction Railway Company, which is probably why the first train to Wenlock just so happened to coincide with the Wenlock Olympic Games. of 1861.
Oh.
Something other towns around this area are famous for, actually, such as Great Malvern, were gas street lights. Malvern's lights were the inspiration in part for C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, if you walk through Malvern, it really does feel at times like you're walking through a Narnian town kind of landscape.
And wardrobes everywhere.
So Brooks was instrumental in much Wenlock's change from oil lamps and tallow candles to proper modern gas lamps. And he did this by becoming the chairman of the Wenlock Gas Company in 1856.
Did he have a life?
I don't think so.
Like, there's no way he had time other than just all of these things, right? Like, he's like, the town is my life.
I think so. I think he devoted himself to the town. I think he devoted himself to, I mean, obviously a lot of self-improvement financially, I imagine, but I think he devoted himself to the town and the region, trying to make its people and the place better.
He sounds like a pretty stand-up guy, really.
So the original objective of this Olympian class he started was to promote the moral, physical and intellectual improvement of the inhabitants of the town and neighbourhood of Wenlock. But from quaint beginnings, something very different was about to evolve. Athletics were included, of course, as were more traditional country sports such as quoits, football and cricket.
Yeah, we need to know what quoits is, because you're apparently a master of it.
Answering Paula's next question, quoits is a traditional game which involves the throwing of metal, rope or rubber rings over a set distance, usually to land over or near a spike. Essentially, it's
kind of horseshoes.
It's cornhole and horseshoes type game.
Or ring toss, kind of, yeah. Interesting. Quoits. You are pretty good at that kind of thing, actually. So I can see you are a quoits master.
Yeah, I'm a master quoitist.
Yeah.
Okay, I got very sidetracked writing this script.
I bet you did.
By the history of quoits.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different types of quoits. There's a United States Quoiting Association, which sounds very official until you go to their website, which is a Facebook page. And it's just a bunch of fellas having a good time playing quoit tournaments. And it's all specifically in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's just very wholesome, and the whole thing is in Pennsylvania. All the tournaments are there. I read the history of the USQA. There was a guy called Troy Frey who started a website of pictures of him and his mates playing quoits. That's it. They just love it. And they play for money. Other games at the Much Wenlock Olympics in 1850. Along with the serious sporting of quoits and athletics, they held fun events.
Yes, the serious sporting. I can't even say it without...
Paula's turned back into a newsie.
The serious sporting. Hear ye. Oh, gosh. I don't know what era that newsie is from, but not...
Incorrect.
1899 New York. Extra, extra. Read all about it. A serious sporting. Buy me last paint, mister.
They did one fun event each year. One year they did a wheelbarrow race. Another year an old woman's race for a pound of tea.
What will motivate old British women to run? I know.
A pound of tea. While not official, I imagine these were some of the highlights of the yearly event that grew from the first games. Many of the events at the games were open to anyone to enter. You just needed to turn up. In the 1851 games, according to the newspaper reported the event, Pointer of Albrighton won 3 events. Badger of Wolverhampton came second in the half-mile foot race, while Maywaring of Birmingham won the leaping in distance event.
Wow. So people are coming from a bit all over of this region. You know, Wolverhampton and Birmingham and...
They're coming from where in 1850 would be a fair whack, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fair trek from Wolverhampton and Birmingham to Much Wenlock in the 1850s, for sure.
Yeah.
The medals awarded featured Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. By the way, we just call Nike in the UK, most of us. I'm only saying Nike because I think that's how you pronounce it when it's a Greek god.
It's Nike. We call it Nikes. Yeah, Nike. Nike means victory.
But that's also what's on the official Olympic medals as well, Nike.
Yeah.
The distance people were travelling to the annual games started to grow year on year. And in 1859, Brooks was in contact with Greece. Brooks sent £10 to be presented to the winner of an event in the Olympian Games in Athens. That's about £1,000 in today's money.
Holy crap.
And these are a series of games that were funded by Evangelos Zappas, a wealthy Greek living in Romania, and were part of a national industry exhibition. The Greek committee decided to award the Wenlock Prize to the winner of the long race.
Oh, so they were, meanwhile, in Greece. They're kind of doing their version of this same kind of thing as well.
These Zappas games were only open to Greek-speaking athletes. The Wenlock Prize was the largest prize on offer. A man named Petros Velisarios of Smyrna in the Ottoman Empire won it. I'm sure he was thrilled. The Zappas Games were essentially a Greek rival attempt for the Olympic Games in their own right that started just after the Wenlock Games. But they both kind of inspired each other at times. The Wenlock Games, for instance, took throw a javelin at a target event from the Zappas Games, for instance.
Oh, interesting.
So the Wenlock Games were first as a revival, but the Zappas Games were very traditionist and Greek, incredibly Greek.
Right. They were more like, this draws maybe a bit more directly from the original Olympics.
Yes.
Because we're Greek, it's our history, we're doing that. And it's really interesting that both these things are kind of happening and inspiring each other in different events, and then sort of relating to each other with the prizes and
some goodwill, I feel like.
Yeah.
So Zappas, this incredibly wealthy Greek in Romania, sent a letter through diplomatic channels to King Otto of Greece, offering to fund the entire project of the Olympic revival, including the cash prizes. But this government saw this as just a throwback to archaic times and would just instead work to make Greeks look antiquated and old-fashioned.
Interesting.
Which is fascinating, right? Because that is what they should be clinging on to. That is what we love about Greece, and that history, the tapestry of Greece as an ancient empire. That's what people love about that and sunny beaches.
Or at least now, then it is interesting to think of and being no, that just is going to make us look like we can't move into the future. We're not future thinking. We're not forward moving. All we're doing is clinging to our past. And now maybe it's just because so much more time has passed. We look at those things in the past and we think, no, this is really important and interesting and significant and we should be remembering it, when then it was just no, that's just us. I mean, that was still a long time from when the original Olympics ended, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's only 150 years away from now, so it's still 1,500 years. Yeah.
This concern about making them look like they are stuck in the past and won't move forward, I find that really, really interesting.
Well, it's the 1850s, right? And you think that in a time when the rest of the world is moving forward at a pace that's never been seen before, industrial revolutions, and just the speed of the world at that time, and how if you could just get whiplash from the progression of the world in the 1850s, to stand still in Greece probably didn't seem like an option.
Yeah.
But Zappas persisted, and eventually the games, to be held every 4 years, began in 1859.
Wow.
And these games really did their own work in the modern Olympic revival. And while they, again, themselves never turned into the real, as we know them, Olympics, the first modern, real, official Olympics took place in Athens in 1896, in a bunch of the venues restored by Zappas for his games.
Interesting.
The Panathenaic Stadium, which started as a race course in the 6th century BC, that was used for religious and athletic festivals celebrated every 4 years in honor of the goddess Athena. That's what they reinvigorated and restored to hold a lot of these games.
How long did his games run for? Do you know?
They began in 1859, but by 1896, an official Olympics has started, so in between those years. In 1860, the Wenlock Games, which preceded the Zappas Games,
Yes.
were held despite vile weather, unquote.
Well, I mean, you're in Britain. You got to keep doing things despite vile weather, or you'll never do anything.
I wrote, much how like sport is played in the United Kingdom today. A man named Lieutenant Colonel Herbert Edwards, who Brooks had invited to speak at the games. Edwards was really happy about these games. He didn't like the Greek influence. And he said he wanted to change the name to the Shropshire Class of British Work and Play.
Just nothing Olympic because it was too Greek.
His quote is, or anything else you will, but let it tell of English men and women, English boys and girls. This didn't catch on. No one wants to go to the British Work and Play Sports Day. Everyone wants to go to the Olympic Games.
There's a cachet to this cool historical, cultural, traditional-ish thing, even if the Greeks themselves were like, no, we want to move forward. But I can also appreciate the standpoint of this guy being like, wanting it to feel a bit more like nationalist, right? Nationalistic.
Well, Edwards is thinking, we're starting this. No one else is doing it. We're starting our own thing.
Yeah, it's a British thing. We should celebrate that it's a British thing. Yeah.
And
yeah, it makes sense.
Very much was British. It really had that type of feel to it.
Yeah, the ancient Greeks probably weren't playing quoit, whatever that was.
They would maybe they were after, quoits after dark for money in the alley. By 1860 as well, the Wenlock Olympian Society formed as an independent body. This evolved into another event, the Shropshire Olympian Games. And by 1865, Brooks established the National Olympian Society based in Liverpool. The aim was to provide a sports association for amateur athletes.
Wow.
Their first festival was held the following year at Crystal Palace in London and attracted over 10,000 spectators.
Wow, holy crap. This thing grew.
And by my definition, 10,000 people going to London to watch athletics, that's the Olympic Games are back.
Yeah.
And that's 1865. That to me feels...
And it's the same thing. It's amateur athletes. It's, that's really interesting.
The Wenlock Olympian Games never turned into the modern games as we know them now. Something that I'm sure Brooks would have wanted. Yeah. But in 1890, a man called Baron Pierre de Coubertin gave a speech. He spoke about how he was impressed and inspired by Brooks's games in Much Wenlock, this small little British town, and his dreams of a new international Olympic Games. Baron Coubertin then went to co-found the International Olympic Committee in 1894, who held then in Athens in 1896 the first official modern games, 4 months after Brooks died. So Brooks, I'm sure, would have been a guest of honor.
I was going to say, was he asked to be part of this committee? Was he consulted at all? Did they include him, or were they just like, hey, that's cool, but let's do it international, and then they kind of did their own thing?
I'm fairly certain that Brooks knew how his influence had spread.
No.
Baron Coubertin here from the International Olympics Committee was inspired by Much Wenlock Games by William Penny Brooks and what he had done, and it's with that energy that the real Olympics started again. I don't know if it would have started without Brooks. I really don't.
Well, he was like the proof of concept, This guy saw how successful this big event was, what it had grown to, how much people loved it.
From nothing to 10,000 people going to Crystal Palace.
And then was like, oh, we could do this. We could make money off of this. People are interested in this, Without that, maybe he wouldn't have had the idea to make to even believe that an international committee could be formed to bring different countries together in athletic competition.
And you can't take Zappas's work and energy out of this equation, because it's right that these Olympic Games in 1896 should have started back again in Athens. I recognise that. That's right that happened there. But Athens wouldn't have been ready for this without Zapas's work and funding.
Yeah, he did the infrastructure for his events, and that was necessary for these events to be able to come in and have a place kind of ready to go for them.
It really took both of these men to bring back the Olympics. And I meant it. The Olympics is my favourite thing.
Yeah, you love the Olympics.
In 2012, when the Olympics came to Britain, the mascot was named Wenlock to honour...
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, to honour William Penny Brooks, a man that, without his passion and effort, the Games, the Olympics as we know them, may still very much be a thing of the past. And this past year's Wenlock Olympian Games...
They still happen?
Because they still go on.
Oh, wow.
Included equestrian, countryside challenge, junior netball, badminton, archery, athletics, a road race, fencing, golf, more equestrian dressage, this time a team event, bowls. This is the Crown Green bowling variety that, for some reason, we talk about a lot on this show.
We do.
Like in
we
our
talk
Jack
about,
Archer.
yeah. Because he Skittles.
Yeah, Skittles, that kind of thing.
Jack Shepherd.
There's school hockey. I think you'd call that in America field hockey, perhaps.
Oh, where you run around on grass with tall socks and like wooden stick things.
And all the girls smash each other's shins in. Yeah, that's what hockey is in the UK. We don't have ice hockey, for instance. And there's tennis and swimming, quick cricket, which has its own venue to be confirmed. Quick cricket, by the way, is like regular cricket but faster.
I guessed.
It's played with a plastic bat and ball. The rules could be altered so virtually any number of children can play in the time available.
Kind of like wiffle ball, but cricket.
Yeah, and the game can be made easier or more difficult by changing the physical dimensions of the pitch itself. It's kind of the cricket you play while you're in the Scouts or at church outing or something like that. Quick cricket is a lot of fun. But they do a bunch of other stuff at the Wenlock Games now as well. It's not just a sporting event. Paula, we can go.
We can go?
We need to go to this.
All right, let's go. I was going to say, where do they hold it?
Wenlock. Much Wenlock, Paula.
It's still in Wenlock. They haven't moved it to like the Birmingham Convention, whatever. It still happens.
This is just the Wenlock Olympian Society doing this.
Wow.
This is another destination we need to put on the list, like the Summer Our Children Went Missing Festival in Hamlin.
Yes. Put it on the list. We're making a list, y'all. We're doing a tour.
Because they've also got like an arts festival attached to the event finale, which is in February, and a live arts festival held in March, including dance, speech, drama, and music.
I like it.
So to this day, the legacy of William Penny Brooks is alive and thriving in a small market town called Much Wenlock, improving the lives of the people that live there. And it just shows that one person can really change the world.
Yeah. But what about Much Werelock? Or Much Wylock? Or Much Howlock?
I got the joke eventually. Look, Much Werelock only comes out after dark.
Only on the full moon.
And do not go to Much Hemlock.
Much Hemlock. Well, Matthew, I did not know anything about this, including the name of the mascot from the 2012 Olympics. So thank you so much for looking into the story of the Wenlock Olympics and how that has led to how we experience the modern Olympic Games today. This was incredibly interesting, and I hope you enjoyed looking into it because I know you do be loving the Olympics.
This was actually an accidental podcast. I was researching something else and I thought, I can't tell that story until I've told this story. So there'll be another Olympic episode in the future, perhaps.
Well, stay tuned for that, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this YouTube video. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Hit the little notification bell because then you'll know every time a new episode has been posted. If you are curious about anything, you have any questions or comments, anything you know about this event, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, if there's someone who you think might enjoy this YouTube channel, go ahead and share it with them. Why not? Let us spread our reach to more and more people so that they also know what Coits is.
Why not? What's the worst that could happen? There's only one way to find out.
Thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to see you next week with another episode. See you later.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.